Donald Trump has spent 9 years attacking political opponents. Not one of them has stopped him. Barack Obama just did, and he did it in 11 words. On a morning that political strategists will study for years, Trump launched the most direct and personal attack of his political career against Michelle Obama, her legacy, her record, her identity, and the institution she built across 2 terms in the White House. The attack was deliberate. It was calculated. It was designed to draw silence from a man who has stayed carefully, strategically quiet for longer than any former president in modern history. Obama did not stay quiet. He responded. And what he said did not raise its voice, did not match the energy, did not fight on Trump's terrain, and that is precisely why it landed the way it did. The room Trump walked into after that response was not the room he walked out of. His communications team went silent for 4 hours. His surrogates on 3 major networks changed the subject simultaneously, and the clip of Obama's reply passed 47 million views before the White House press office issued a single word. This channel runs on no corporate funding, no political alignment, and no talking point pressure telling us what to soften or leave out. If this kind of political analysis matters to you, the kind that reads the actual dynamics beneath the headlines, consider supporting this work directly. The link is in the description. It keeps this channel independent. It keeps this analysis uncensored. Trump's attack on Michelle Obama did not begin this week. The groundwork was laid across 27 months of escalating rhetorical targeting, a pattern that started as implication, moved to insinuation, and finally arrived at direct public mockery of her post-White House initiatives, her public statements, and her standing as a cultural figure with approval ratings that have consistently outperformed every active political figure in the country, including her husband. Each individual attack, reviewed in isolation, looked like standard political provocation. A comment here, a social media post there, a rally aside that the press covered for 48 hours and then moved past. Reviewed individually, each one looked like noise. Reviewed together, across 27 months, they formed a deliberate escalation strategy built around one central calculation: that Barack Obama would not respond, that his post-presidential discipline would hold, and that Michelle Obama would absorb the attacks without a vehicle to answer them effectively. That calculation was correct for 26 months. Then Obama responded, and the attack strategy that had been constructed across more than 2 years of deliberate escalation was dismantled, not with a counter-campaign, not with a press conference, not with a legal filing, but with a single measured public statement that reframed every attack Trump had made, not as political aggression, but as personal inadequacy. By the time Trump's team understood what had happened, there was no framework left to act on. The narrative had already moved. To understand why Obama's response hit the way it did, why it silenced surrogates, froze communications teams, and generated the kind of political momentum that does not dissipate in a news cycle, you need to understand what Obama was actually doing, and why it is categorically different from every response to Trump that has been attempted by every political figure in the last decade. Every major Trump opponent before this one fought on Trump's terms. They matched his volume. They countered his attacks with attacks. They attempted to out-insult, outmaneuver, or out-document him inside a framework Trump had spent decades building specifically for that kind of combat. Hillary Clinton's campaign built an entire opposition research infrastructure. It did not stop him. 17 Republican primary opponents in 2016 attacked him directly, some memorably. It accelerated him. The pattern held. Direct engagement with Trump on Trump's terrain at Trump's volume, using Trump's preferred weapons, personal attack, mockery, escalation, consistently produces one outcome. It feeds the engine it is trying to stop. Obama did not engage on Trump's terrain. He did not raise his volume. He did not match the energy. His response operated on a completely different register, one of calm, specific, documented contrast. And that register is the one framework Trump's entire political identity has no developed answer for. Trump has spent 40 years in public life building a comprehensive tactical system for responding to attacks. That system has a specific vulnerability. It was built to absorb and redirect anger. It was never built to absorb calm. When the response to a personal attack is not outrage but quiet, specific, factual reframing delivered without visible emotion, the attack loses the energy source it was designed to run on. Obama's 11 words did not fight Trump's attack. They made it irrelevant. And political irrelevance is the only thing Trump's system does not have a counter for. That alone would have been enough to change the political picture. But Obama's response did not stop there. The specific content of what he said, the precision of the contrast it drew, the deliberateness of what it did not say, and the platform and timing of its delivery turned a single statement into a 72-hour political event that pulled oxygen from three simultaneous Trump policy cycles the White House had been building for weeks. Now hold all of that in your mind and multiply it by the fact that Obama has not fully responded yet. This was the opening statement. If you are not subscribed to this channel yet, do it now. Hit the bell. What Obama does in the next 72 hours will determine whether this moment is a news cycle or a turning point, and the next update will not wait. Trump's political operation is now inside a response problem it did not anticipate and has not previously encountered in this specific configuration. The options available are real. None of them work cleanly. Escalate the attack against Michelle Obama. The original attack has already generated a response that reframed it as personal inadequacy rather than political aggression. Escalating further does not change that frame, it reinforces it. Every additional attack now occurs inside a narrative where Trump is the aggressor against a woman whose public approval sits 22 points above his, and whose husband just demonstrated the ability to respond with calm precision that made the aggression look small. Escalating against someone whose response made you look small does not recover the ground. It confirms the loss. Pivot and ignore. Trump's entire political identity is built on the principle that no attack goes unanswered, that silence equals weakness, and that dominating the narrative requires constant forward aggression. A strategic retreat from a confrontation he initiated against an opponent whose response drew 47 million views is not a pivot. It is a visible retreat in front of an audience that has been trained for 9 years to read Trump's silence as defeat. His own base will read it that way. His opponents will amplify it. Ignoring Obama's response is not a neutral option. It is a costly one. Attack Obama directly. Obama's current public standing, his post-presidential discipline, and the specific content of his response have positioned him as the calm, measured contrast to Trump's aggression. A direct Trump attack on Obama now plays directly into the narrative Obama's response established. It confirms the frame rather than breaking it. And Obama has demonstrated, through the precision of his initial response, that he is prepared for this engagement in a way that his previous post-presidential posture did not reveal. Attacking a prepared opponent who has already proven he can reframe your aggression is not a political strategy. It is a recurring mistake. Reframe through surrogates. Trump's communications infrastructure has deployed surrogates to redirect coverage toward policy contrast rather than personal conflict. The problem is structural. A 47 million view clip does not get redirected by a surrogate's policy talking points. The audience that watched the clip is not consuming it in a news context. They are sharing it in a social context, which means every surrogate appearance designed to change the subject generates another round of clip recirculation. The surrogate strategy is not neutralizing the response. It is amplifying it. Trump's political operation is not paralyzed because it lacks competence. It is paralyzed because the specific situation it now occupies has no option that does not extend the damage it is trying to contain. For Michelle Obama, this is not a moment. It is a structural redefinition of her political standing that will shape the next 4 years of American political life, regardless of any decision she makes or does not make. Michelle Obama entered this week as the country's most admired private citizen, a post-White House figure with enormous cultural standing, no formal political role, and a carefully maintained distance from direct political combat. She did not respond to Trump's attack publicly. She did not need to. Her husband's response repositioned her from the target of a political attack into the figure around whose defense the country's most significant living political voice chose to break his strategic silence. That repositioning is not cosmetic. It carries weight that translates directly into political capital of a kind she has not previously held in her post-White House life. Democrats who have spent 18 months searching for a figure capable of drawing contrast with Trump without being consumed by the engagement have watched Obama's response function exactly the way they needed a response to function. Effectively, calmly, without political cost. The calls to Michelle Obama's office that began within hours of Obama's statement were not congratulatory calls. They were exploratory calls. They were calls from people who now see the political landscape differently than they saw it 48 hours ago. Her team has not responded to those calls publicly. They have not needed to. The silence itself carries information. These are not the actions of a private figure who has found her preferred position. These are the actions of a private figure whose options just expanded significantly, buying time while the full weight of what changed becomes clear. Pull back further, and the picture extends beyond one political exchange. American allies watching the Trump administration's domestic political durability as a factor in foreign policy calculations, particularly in Europe, where several governments have staked significant diplomatic positions on assumptions about American political continuity, have updated those calculations this week. A former president demonstrating the capacity to effectively check a sitting president's narrative control in a single statement, at scale, with global reach, is a data point that foreign ministries do not ignore. It tells them the American political contest is not concluded in the direction they may have assumed. American adversaries are watching a different screen. Russia and China have both invested analytical resources in mapping the internal coherence of the Trump political coalition, its vulnerabilities, its pressure points, the conditions under which it fractures. A 47 million view political moment that leaves the sitting president's communications team silent for 4 hours and his surrogate network visibly off message is a data point about coalition cohesion that goes directly into those analytical frameworks. The American media ecosystem, already operating under the structural pressure of fragmented trust, declining institutional authority, and platform-driven narrative competition, has been handed a story that does not resolve cleanly in either direction. It cannot be filed as a Trump win. It cannot be filed as a Trump loss without triggering the counter-mobilization that has historically followed any coverage framed that way. Editors are making decisions right now about how to frame what happened, and those decisions will shape public understanding of this moment for months. The political generation watching this exchange, specifically the voters under 35 who decide their engagement and participation levels based on whether politics produces moments that feel real rather than performed, received a moment of unscripted, authentic political contrast that broke from the managed spectacle they have learned to dismiss. That generation's engagement calculus just shifted. We are in that gap now. A sitting president who attacked a former First Lady's legacy publicly and deliberately. A former president who broke a years-long pattern of strategic silence to respond in 11 words. A communications team that went dark for 4 hours. A surrogate network that changed the subject simultaneously on 3 networks. A clip that passed 47 million views before the White House issued a statement. A political operation with 4 available response options, none of which resolves the damage. And a private citizen whose political options just expanded in ways that were not visible 72 hours ago. This is the political reality that Washington woke up to. It did not exist 72 hours ago. It cannot be reversed. Every political calculation made from this point forward, inside the White House, inside the Democratic Party, inside the media institutions that cover both, will be made inside this new reality, not the one that existed before Obama spoke. The old political dynamic between these two men is gone. The question now is what gets built in its place, and whether the next move stays below the threshold that turns a political moment into a political rupture. Does Obama continue to engage, building a sustained public contrast campaign that uses the same calm precision as the opening statement? Or does this remain a single intervention designed to establish a boundary rather than begin a war? Does Michelle Obama move toward a more active public role in response to the political opening her husband's statement created, or does her silence become its own form of political power that is more valuable uncashed than spent? Does Trump's political operation find a response that resets the narrative? And if it does that response come from Trump himself, or from the institutional infrastructure around him that has more strategic flexibility than he does? And does this moment represent the first evidence that the post-2024 political landscape contains a check on Trump's narrative dominance that his operation did not account for and does not currently have a proven answer for? Leave your honest assessment in the comments. The most important conversations on this channel happen there. Share this with anyone in your life who is serious about understanding where American political power is actually moving. Not the version being packaged for consumption, but the version that will determine what the political map looks like in 2026 and beyond. Until the next update, stay sharp, stay ahead, and never stop asking the questions that matter.